Good morning. Welcome back, and allow me to start with the conference. As we saw yesterday, I will just pass a new version of the agenda because we have some changes. One of them because our friends at the United Nations ESWA have very good thing to present to you as a keynote. So he is now our third keynote speaker for today. And after that, we will resume with other sessions. So allow me to welcome Dr. Ayman al-Shirbini. He is the Chief of ICT Policies at the United Nations ESWA. Please.
Good morning, everyone. So it's a challenge now to speak in this very morning while I haven't slept last night at all. So please bear me if I can't really get the pace, if it is slower than the necessary or faster than necessary. So please forgive me, this is a word of caution. It might be a little bit long, but I hope it is inspiring. So I'm here representing the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, and I'm the Chief of ICT Policies in the UN ESWA. And for those who don't know the UN ESWA, we are a regional commission, one of 5 regional commissions representing the UN Global Secretariat, one nearly each continent. So we are actually responsible for the UN socio-economic activities in the Arab region. UN ESWA actually, to define itself, we had many exercises, but generally speaking, we can say that the UN ESWA is the think tank of the region, or let us say the UN think tank of the region, and according to our latest verbatim, we are also the voice of the region in global negotiations, global positions and things. One might think that what is the relationship between the UN ESWA socio-economic activities and the ASREN or the ANDRENs or all these kind of things, and this is the presentation going to answer that question. So in fact, the topic is related to ASREN and ANDREN activity, but it's a little bit wider scope, trying to present the paradigm through which the UN is trying to use the ICT for development in the context of the new developments in the world. Last remark before I start is that ESWA today has 2 other interventions different from mine. So I will present, as you see here, key issues on information society, digital economy, and smart development. And then my 2 other colleagues, they will describe several aspects, specific aspects, one on science, technology, innovation at large with development, and of course related to the topic. And my other colleague would describe a very interesting application of the infrastructure on the climate change modeling. So without further ado, I will just go on. So as we understand that the information society is a notion that has been around us for like now 15 years, and it relies chiefly on the use of smart technologies. So mainly the information society is about ICT, and the information society notion has morphed to become afterward a little bit knowledge society and other things. But the genesis of this WSIS is very important to mention that it is mandated by the UN General Assembly. So it is very eminent process at the global level since 2001, and it aimed at reducing the digital divide between developed and developing countries, building awareness on the benefits of ICT and presenting mechanisms for developing countries. So this was the aim. It took place in 2003 and 2005. And it was reviewed in 2015. I'm not trying to read every slide, but I'm trying to just remember the key messages. So generally speaking, the WSIS is the most overarching process in the field of technology and development. So this is a clear message. There is other processes on SDI and development, but not as robust as the World Summit on Information Society. So why I'm mentioning that? Because there are here 11 action lines by the WSIS that has been there since like 10 years now and has been renewed the last year for another decade. So these are the 11 action lines: role of public governance, infrastructure, C2, access as C3, capacity building, confidence, and the rest I don't have to read all. But I want to point out that for the community of research, education, and infrastructure, which blends constitutes the ASREN community, we have here the C2, the C3, and also some of the applications. So WSIS relates to all communities of development, all communities of practice, including the ASREN community. So this is like just an anchoring point. Now, from another perspective, the UN has also developed globally the so-called 2030 agenda. All of us here now in the news, in each country, the country has developed its 2030 agenda in the Arab world and elsewhere. So this is, these are the 17 goals of the SDGs. If we go here a little bit of focus in point 9, goal 9, we have the infrastructure, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So ASREN and ASREN and the communities of ICT infrastructure, where I come from actually, is very much related to the first higher level of the SDGs, 17 goals. It is explicit there. Some practices, they try to find a sub-anchor, but infrastructure is there in goal 9. And the rest, of course, goes without saying that ICT infrastructure has a direct impact on everything, on education, as we know in our practice here, and on even peace, life underwater, coastal life, and these are other practices that we are dealing with also within ESQA. I forgot to say that ESQA doesn't deal only with socioeconomic at large, but we deal even with sectors like energy, water, food, and of course ICT infrastructure and ICT in general. So SDGs have now 17 goals, and this is the post-2015 development agenda that inherited the MDG process in the beginning of the millennium. And this is where the WSIS fit. The WSIS, the WSIS, is a way to serve this post-2015 agenda. And now comes the so-called, the matrix, where we have intersections between the SDGs, the 17 goals of SDGs, and the 11 action lines of the WSIS. It's very clear. Why am I saying that? Because in the global community, the development community, mostly socioeconomic experts and scholars, have had a need to reprove again the relevance of the ICT infrastructure and this kind of ICT sector to the global community. And this was kind of a strong debate that was really very healthy and ended up by renewing the confidence in this sector to be the bandwagon for development in the next 15 years. So this is one of the outcomes of another UN General Assembly meeting last year, exactly 12 months from now. So this is the matrix. It links the WSIS with the SDGs. What about our region? We identified that the region still have many issues related to the employment of ICT infrastructure, among others, for development. We have still issues related to human capital, the e-services, confidence, and many other things. This is a hefty slide, don't read it. The message is that the WSIS plus 10, which took place 2015, which is 10 years from the WSIS, renewed the mandate. And generally here the message is that the issues that are still very contentious at the global level are not actually the infrastructure. So the infrastructure is something that they have agreed to its benefit. But still the issue is issues like privacy, issues like openness, and issues like security and human rights. So these are related to so-called internet governance issues. I will come to that in a bit. So how do we see it here at the big picture within ESQA? Our perspective is that we translate the WSIS process to two clusters, as we see in the bottom. We abstracted the matter into an economy that is producing services and a society that is harnessing such services. As simple as that. We try to unbundle the socioeconomic jargon into the supply side and the demand side. From that, we started developing our paradigm into focusing on the digital economy on one side and focusing on smart societies on the other. Both together, the supply side, the demand side, the production and the usage would contribute through this paradigm to the SDGs. So we have a program in ESCWA we developed, and I'm happy to present it the first time in the academia here in the AUB. It is the program called Izdihar. And for those who don't know exactly the word, it's a synonym of an Arabic word that means prosperity. What is Izdihar? It is an information society, digital economy, hub for the Arab region. So this program is multifaceted program, as you see, with three verticals and 2 horizontal. We have a focus on the economy and competitiveness production on the one side. On the very other side, we have the society and digital transformation. And in the middle, we have state orientation regarding the governance, legal and policy rights issues. All with an overarching interdisciplinary module called strategic frameworks. So this is a program by ESCWA aiming at increasing the readiness of the region by 2020 to be able to harness the ICT for the 2030. So in 3 years from now, hopefully, the region is ready to implement to the fullest extent all the benefits of ICT, infrastructures and applications and platforms to the benefit of SDGs. These are some details. So we have 35 activities. We have a publication we call the ICT Horizon 2030. We have a report called Arab Digital Economy and Smart Societies Report. We have the Arab Internet Governance Forum, the Arab IGF, many of you have heard and contributed to it. And we have the Arab ICT Academy, with this conference, many things taking place during the next, inshallah, 12 months. And then the next in 3 years, we will try to boost, catalyze this uptake of technology for development. So quickly, I will go through one by one very quick. International regional frameworks. These are related to strengthening the ability to have strategic plans at the national and the regional levels. Like activities we have done before, we will do things here 2017, and I invite you, we will do that and put it in your agenda, probably May 2017. At the state governance level, we have here the infrastructure anchored on, under that group or module. So we have the infrastructure policy and legal environment and rights. This is a long message. I will not go into it. The idea here was to define, to present how the global community under the General Assembly, under the WSIS, defined the word internet governance. And this is very important because the topic of my presentation was issues. But generally speaking, this is a simplified group. Critical internet resources, like the Arab domains, global domains, numbers, IPs, and things like that. Of course, all of you know that, you are from the networking community. The infrastructure in general, and we had here also issues regarding regional ISPs and things, access and content, openness, security, and privacy. So these are generally the last 2 slides that I skipped, grouped into 4 simple classes. So ESCWA and the League of Arab States developed in 2009 an initiative called Arab Dialogue Internet Governance. Colleagues here from Europe, they know the EuroDIG, the European Dialogue Internet Governance. So something related, and it is actually ESCWA and the League of Arab States. And then from that we developed collectively with the community a regional roadmap for internet governance to guide us to where are we heading in 2015. This was 2010. And then we had a call for establishing an Arab IGF, the Arab Internet Governance Forum, something like the Global Internet Governance Forum, and it's another story. Generally, we had 4 meetings from 2012 until last year, one in Kuwait, and the other is in, second was in Algeria, 2013, 2014 in ESCWA, and 2014 was hosted by OJEL, the Lebanese government. So we are glad that even this event is hosted by a Lebanese institution, and so Lebanon is playing really a very important role in that domain. So these are 4 annual IGFs, Arab IGFs that took place during the last 5 years. This is the simplified structure of how the Arab IGF is operating with the partnership of everyone. So we have here partnership from my home country, which is Egypt, they are assuming the role of the Arab IGF Secretary. We have partnership here from the whole community in the Arab MAC advisory group, and I invite every one of you to follow its deliberations on the website of the forum, and I'm happy to have Mr. Yusuf Turman as one of the MAC members, and also to have another colleague from the Taghi community, Talala Wazala community, with Shah Shaban. He is the head of the Arab MAC for the last year. So we have every year another different host, sometimes from the government or from civil society or from the academia or whatever, and we have partners and so on and so forth. So generally speaking, the outcomes are messages, and messages are to be converted into recommendations that will fit into the ministerial bodies that are going to shape the policies of the region. At the last paragraph, I say that after 4 years, we decided that we have to review what went well and what went wrong, and we are now retreating for a few months to assess how can we be better in the future and how to be geared more towards sustainable development. And within 3 months, inshallah, we will announce the next host of the Arab IGF and the new mandate. So these are like different studies per pillar. I will not go through them. Now for the economy, competitiveness, it's an interesting message. According to the World Economic Forum, we are now experiencing a fourth industrial revolution. The first one in the mid of last century or before was the industrial revolution based on electricity, then another wave on electronics, and the third one on ICT, and now it is more into the digital, which blends ICT and other digital applications even in the human science field. So generally speaking, the main idea here in the digital economy cluster is that we need to be producers of technologies and to produce part of the services we are consuming. So if we see here the third bullet point, for example, the magnitude of the internet economy, which is part of the digital economy, is 4.2 trillion. This is even an outdated statistic. This was by Boston Group in 2014, expecting this number 2016. According to a few months ago, we have these numbers quadrupled, at least in the field of digital trade. So we have really huge things happening based on the infrastructure in the economic sphere. We have a lot of studies on that, and we are doing another one now on the digital economy very soon. The last one here, digital transformation. So what is the difference? Now I said we are trying to bisect things, so the society here is transforming, assimilating, using technologies that have been produced either globally or regionally or locally. So here it is the usage, the transformation for social inclusion. So there is a purpose for such transformations, a political purpose that we need states to include people who have been marginalized or disfranchised. So the notion that we are dealing with recently is the smart societies. Smart societies actually relates to the use of ICT technologies and other technologies as well, but mostly digital. So we can comfortably say that smart societies are actually digital societies as well. So all sectors will be touched by this digital era, as we all know, including transport, health, and others, and of course, it started by the research and education community. So here we have had studies on smart cities and smart governments and many things in the pipeline. We had also another arm in the field of transformation. We had this ICT Academy. The ICT Academy is a project that we designed based on experience in Asia, and it was geared towards the transformation as well. So we're still in block 3, related to how to transform institutions and governments in order to help better using ICT. So the Academy here has a nice title. It's called ICT Essentials for Government Leaders. And we have some letters, we call it AG. And it builds on these lessons from the training center in the Asia Pacific. And goal is to help governments harness these things in the middle level management, wherever they are. So there are 4 modules. First one, linkages between ICT and development. The second is ICT policies, ICT for development policies. The third, eGov. and the fourth, internet governance. The last angle I would like to touch on before I wrap up is a new field. And I have not spoken about it before. This is the first time I speak about it because I think it is relevant. It is the peaceful use of outer space. So also at the UN General Assembly level, there is a very robust process, even much before the ICT. This is called the process of peaceful use of outer space. And in resolution number 6875, the emphasis was on the role of interregional cooperation in this field. So we had a little bit of activities in this field recently during the last 2 years, and we are trying to strengthen it. My main message here is only to anchor the presentation of my colleague who was coming afterwards, that we have been there from the ICT infrastructure perspective, attending these activities related to space and use of space, telesensing, remote sensing, GPS, all these applications. But also my colleague was going to speak afterwards, he has an application related to using that kind of things in the climate change mitigation and adaptation and modeling. So that is how we work in ESCWA. So we all trying to tackle things from different angles. So this field is also related to ICT for development. So the smart paradigm now includes the smart governments, smart sectors, smart cities, smart citizens, and we envelop all that in the notion smart societies. Next year we are going to give a little bit of attention to smart learning, which is going to be an activity between us and the ITU, and it of course relates to the community of ASREN and AMREN. So this is the whole thing, the big picture. These are details of activities that how they relate, and this program called SDR, and it is actually funded by ESCWA mainly, and it's also open for partnerships, whether cash or in kind, and that is the way even we have done many other activities before. So we believe in multi-stakeholder partnership, and we believe in the role of academia, business sector, and civil society, although we are intergovernmental by nature. We work with all the stakeholders in the Arab IGF, and we are working with academia in specific in many angles. We are developing STI, science technology ecosystems, and offices in many academies, many research centers in the region called technology transfer offices. We are engaging them in the Arab IGF process, engaging academia in AGRA process, and we have worked with ASREN for many years, and now many things. And now I'd like to thank AUB, ASREN, Taghi, and my friend Yusuf Burman and his colleagues. And I'd like just to leave a message for the research community that there are huge issues to be taken care of regarding the postgraduate studies and the postdoctoral research. In these fields, they are still very high priority: privacy, net neutrality, peaceful use of outer space. And by that, I conclude, and thank you for bearing with me.
Okay, good morning. We are going to proceed with the first session this morning. We are a little bit late, so we have to be. We ask the speaker to not to go over time. We have basically 5 speakers this morning. The first speaker is Shafiq, Mr. Shafiq Shaikh. He's going to talk about the RAI, Visualité Européenne, the RAI Academic Cooperation Initiative. He's a regional communication manager, Middle Eastern region, based in Lebanon. So please, Shafiq, not to go over 10 minutes.
I will do my best.
Good morning. Thank you for ASREN, thank you for AUB, thank you for being here this morning. So I have 10 minutes. I will try to be very focused on my topic. I'm coming from RIPE NCC. RIPE NCC, we are one of the 5 regional internet universities all over the world. We allocate the IP address for Middle East, Europe, and Central Asia. That means if any one of you wants to connect to the internet, he or she needs an IP address. So this IP address we allocate to the providers, to operators, to ISPs, and through these ISPs you can get your IP address and connect to the internet. A lot of discussions and talks from yesterday about the importance of researchers and importance how to get our national or Arab research to the global community research. So what I'm going to talk about is RIPE Academic Cooperation Initiative. It fits in this objective. That means we are trying to connect the Arab researchers, the national or the Middle Eastern researchers, get them to the global community researchers through inviting them to the RIPE meetings and to RIPE regional meetings around Europe by funding their travels, their accommodation, to present their researchers in front of the global players and in front of the internet community. We had a very successful experience with ASREN last year. So, as my colleague Ayman said, we have a lot of business opportunities here in the region. We have people, we have researchers, we have the know-how, we have the skills. So just we need to take their hands and put them on the right track. How we can do this? As I said, we take them to the global community to present their researchers. These are the hot or the main topics that are related to the internet and that these researchers can work with. Network measurement and analysis, and I'm happy to announce that the first anchor, or what we call anchor, is a measurement device for the internet, was deployed last month in the AUB. So thanks to Class 4, thanks Muhammad. So now we can do measurements for the internet from academic perspective. And this is a good step. So we have an anchor here at the AUB. So our students, our researchers can use this anchor to do their researches, to get their metrics, to get their analysis. Second, the activist deployment. As you know now with the IP, the Internet Protocol version 4 completion, so we need a new Internet Protocol to, so we can, all these people, all the 7 billion around the world can connect to the Internet. And with the Arab world, a lot of things are really on the ground and they are in a good progression, especially in the Gulf region. So IPv6 is another important topic. BGP routing is about connecting the networks. Internet governance, but what's happening with WSS and IGF. Peering and interconnectivity is another hot topic. It's about the exchange. Do you know that 90% of the Arab traffic, that means if I want to send an email from Lebanon to wherever, to Kuwait, to Qatar, to Saudi, my email goes to London or to Marseille and then come back to the Arab region. So this is a very important topic. It's about the internet exchange, national internet exchange. Internet of Things. We will have a session at 12 o'clock, I think, about Internet of Things, which is another hot topic. So these are the main hot topics that our researchers can work with, and we are more than happy to support them and help them with this. The meetings that we held and that we can invite these researchers to go there and present their researchers are the following. So we have the main RIPE meeting, we have the MINOG in Oman, so I would like to bring you all to Oman, it's here in the region. And we have another meeting for the Eurasia, and we have the first meeting for the Southeast Europe. What's nice that the RACI is a yearly context. That means wherever the researcher is ready with his or her application or her research, he can apply to attend one of these meetings. So we have deadlines. These are the deadlines that the researchers should send their application to us. So we have a committee, the best 3 applications or the best 3 researchers, we can get them, put them on the plane and get them with us to one of these meetings to be with the global internet community. Slazy.net, Ripe.net, very easy link. We are in the social media, and you can contact me. I'm here all this day. Thank you once again, and really we need to put our researchers on the right track, to take their hands and go with them to the global community. We have a lot of potentials. Last year, in cooperation with Dr. Youssef, we had 41 applications from the Arab countries, 41. So, a lot, but another issue is the quality of the research. It's another topic, so I will not tackle it. But once again, I will be more than happy to have any suggestions, any cooperations. We need our Arab researchers to go out to the global community to get their experience, and we'll be happy to support them. Thank you. 10 minutes?
This is the record, 6 minutes. Right? This is the record, 6 minutes. Okay, we go to the next stop. It should be by Dr. Karat Salah. He's going to be talking about climate change in the Arab region. He's from ISQA. Please.
Good morning. Thanks, Mr. Chair, for the introduction. I will give you application. It's not really a purely IT business, but it's application how to apply information, education, and research in what we really need on the ground. We need to know how we are impacted by climate change. I just came back from Marrakesh from the conference of parties, the 22nd COP, which took like 2 weeks of negotiation, because the climate change is hitting our region and the Arab region. And we needed to invest on all available resources in our region and not to rely only on global reports and global scientific work, because we need to build capacity of science on this field in the region. So as my colleague Ayman said, that we have RICAR. RICAR is a Regional Initiative on Climate Change in the Arab region. It's collaborative work between different UN and League of Arab States organizations. As you can see on the screen, there are more than 11 partners working on these climate change project, because we need to work on modeling, we need to work on databases, we need to work on vulnerability assessment, because mostly we are looking at water resources and related sectors. Why? Because the water resources is priority. We need to adapt, like most of the negotiation in the climate change, how Arab region can adapt to climate change, especially in water, agriculture, food security, and to work with the agenda of SDGs as Ayman presented. So you can see all partners here, and including research centers, because these are research work. We are doing modeling, not only looking at strategies from the top, but also looking at how we do the work. Like, without going really in deep with that, how we work with climate change scenarios. As you can see, there are 4 scenarios, and we try to use in the model some realistic scenarios, how we can get to average one, which is, we call it RCP 4.5, and the maximum one, which is the red color here. The red scenario, as you can see, the emissions are increasing. Why? Because we are not mitigating. We are not taking measures to reduce emissions in the atmosphere. And this is why we call this scenario is business as usual scenario. I will give you a flavor of what outputs we get from this project, because the main focus is IT, on how to build a regional hub to store all this information, to interact with all these mapping results, and to look at all outcomes coming from the models. You can see here at the right side the two scenarios, 4.5 the medium and the bottom one. The more reddish, the more warming we expect. These maps shows that by end of the century, the temperature increase will be from 4 to 5 degrees in the Arab region. This is quite alarming, because we need to take measures to adapt and to mitigate to these results. Of course, to do this, we took this project continued now for the 5th year. So I'm just showing a snapshot of our results to give you a flavor of what we can get and what we will be storing on our IT platform or the regional now. So let's scary. And here, another output from the climate models is the precipitation. As you can see, we always look at water. So the precipitation is the rainfall, and we can see the two scenarios. You can look at the Atlas mountains in Morocco with the brown color. What does this brown color say? Is that there is expected reduction in rainfall about 8 millimeters per day, whatever, to end of the century. So we have to take measures for this. We have to look at agriculture, we have to change crop patterns, we have to take measures that we can cope with more drier conditions. And also we have at the upper river basins, because we look at Nile Basin, Euphrates, and Tigris. So this map at the bottom for the high scenario tells that we need also to look at the drying conditions of climate change. And also we are hit by extreme events like by sandstorms, by flash floods, by drought. So these measures, as you can see, tells the summer days are increasing. You can see the first really heavy storm we are getting these days. It's too much delayed. Why? This is what the map is saying. At the end of the century, the red color say that the summer days will increase by 40 to 60 days by the end of the century. And this what means that the summer days we took a threshold of 40 degrees, like when the maximum temperature is greater than 40 degrees. So because most of the Arab Peninsula face these high levels of temperature. So this is another kind of, and this is the maximum length of dry spells, the number of days, the width of the number of days when we don't get any rainfall during these days. So it is what we call dry spells. So this is the science, and this is how we can get all these outputs. We are getting out of these maps. Of course, I'm showing you 4 out of 400 maps we are getting for different outputs of RICAR. And so this is why we needed this. We needed a regional knowledge hub to work with all these aspects in the circles around the regional hub. And to build this hub, we have water data, climate data, impact assessment toolkits, vulnerability assessment, and so we have 3 terabytes of information to manage, to give to users, to give to researchers and to academia to deal with these scientific outputs to build on in different sectors, the biodiversity, the agriculture. They need to take this information to build on in different sectors. So this is why we are looking at the regional hub. And to build this regional hub, we had a working group formed from different organizations, from different experts, to tell us what do you need out of this hub as a researcher, as a governmental officer, as NGO, as an end user, etc. So this is what we worked for 1 year. And we came up with definitions, like what the objective is to have interactive and online platform and access to information. And we came with some other desired outputs to look at networking, awareness raising. So they need to tell decision makers how climate change is impacting the region and how these messages can be taken to negotiation during the global meetings in Marrakesh or in Paris last year. So this is how we can get messages out of the science, and this is the science policy interface, and we should deal with these expressions very well here. We are dealing with education, with research, with science, but how we can interpret these outputs and these maps to policy measures and to strategy. And this is the key aspect. And then we agreed on the function of the regional knowledge hub. What do we need to the mapping tools, comparative analysis for different scenarios, etc. So we built in a consultative manner how we can have a hub that serves the users. And these all the contents, again, the users want. So 1 year we have been discussing every item of these. What do you need in this regional hub? We need to have learning tools, we need to have model outputs, disaster, early warning component. We saw that disasters hitting the region, like Guno, hurricane in Oman a few years back, and we have flash floods in Jeddah, and now we're getting snowstorms in Egypt and Jordan, Palestine after 1 month from now, every year of during the past year. So we need to really have a tool that give us early warning how to deal with these disasters. And also, who are the users? Who are the users of these regional knowledge hubs? We classify them as a primary group and secondary group. And as you see, universities and research centers are the leading end users in this because they need the digital data to build their research hypothesis and to build different models they are applying. So we have these data that will help the Arab scientists and researchers to work more on the climate change, because climate change is a long-term issue. So we are not stopping here, but we will continue to work on this. The secondary groups, they said we can then build the small modules in the hub for private sector, for civil society, and for other users. And then we define some operational criteria, because we need to have technical strengths of this regional knowledge hub in dealing with these sophisticated models and information. We need to have accessibility and reliability, and some, of course, you are experts in IT and system management. Some people say to be accountable and to have a reliable system that should be operational not less than 95 to 99% of the time. We cannot tell the user that when you access the hub, it's out of service now. No, we need to have a reliable system and easy to access. And more importantly, it's free of charge. It's only password protected for some raw data. Why? Because the countries have some reservation on sharing the raw data. Sometimes they need, okay, we can share them for scientists to do the research, but we cannot build messages and policies that are not under our control. So we have to really manage this with password control options. And then credibility and communication. Of course, we need quality control, quality assurance, and to have simple and useful information disseminated through the hub. And as I mentioned about the governance, it's very important. We had a governance structure for this hub under the Arab Ministerial Water Council. It's a council of Arab ministers under the League of Arab States. They said we need this regional knowledge hub, and we need all scientists in the Arab region to be active in the global platforms, because when we look at the global and scientific committees, we hardly find Arab scientists there. Like you can count them on one hand, like 3 or 4 out of like 500 scientists, mostly coming from the developed world. So this is why we are pushing towards building the capacity on this field of climate change to go and negotiate on in the global meeting confidently and with some scientific backing and strength. And I thank you for your attention, and I hope I didn't create controversy.
Okay, we
Soria here in Lebanon. I'm going to be presenting what we call the Beirut Solar Lab. And we describe it as a niche for some sort of interdisciplinary research. So my presentation has this technical part, this educational part, and this collaborative aspect. And I'm going to be trying to go through it fast. I'm going to be skipping much of the technical details because of the time constraint. So Lebanon has this issue of the energy crisis. And we know that 95% of our energy is produced in form of fuel. And like the natural production does not exceed the 5%. And we have a yearly increase in demand going up to 5%. And now with the crisis, Syrian crisis, the numbers are on the rise. So in face of this crisis, and we are a Mediterranean country that enjoys the presence of 3,000 hours of solar radiation a year, to say the least. So one should think of using the solar energy to at least be part of this energy crisis solution. So inspired by work done at MIT called the Sustainable Lab, where they have produced multiple solar maps for multiple cities, listing some of the few maps, Boston, Cambridge, San Francisco, Washington, and New York City, and internationally in Chile, in these two cities that are listed on the slide. So our attempt at CNRS was to reproduce this work and to try to give it as a solution, as a decision support system for the policymakers as well as the local community. So I'm going to just skip through these slides to gain some time. So basically what we calculated is irradiation, a rooftop irradiation. So how much sun every rooftop is potentially receiving throughout the year. So, however, it's the radiation is time dependent as well as location dependent. So we have to model the effects of seasonal effect as well as the location of each building. And not only that, since we're modeling it in an urban setting, we have overshadowing effects, which I'll probably elaborate here. Okay, so nearby buildings overshadow the buildings in their premises, and this affects the total irradiation every building receives. So what we have produced is, and in the lack of full three-dimensional details of the building, we have assumed that these buildings are all have flat roofs. We know that also we have a lot of water tanks on top of the roofs, so we assume that 30% of these roofs are usable. So with these assumptions and with some raw data measurements done here at AUB related to the diffuse fraction of radiation and the assumption of the panel efficiencies of 10%, we have produced this map. So this is an interactive map that is available online. I'll show it to you on this slide. So this map is available on this link, and it is a building level fine-grained solar irradiation map. So the users can go and click on each building so that they can get estimate of how much radiation the building receives. However, at the time when we produced this map, we had a problem with the data, the actual energy use of each building. So we had no idea how to compute the efficiency of the solar power at the building level. However, we got some collaboration from EDL, the Electricité du Liban, and they gave us the building level electrical use, so now that we can not only talk about solar efficiency at the building level, but also in the process of modeling the spatial-temporal usage of electricity in town, which gives us some power in smartly managing power. That is, we are dealing with the blackouts on the daily level that sometimes exceed the 3 hours. So we're in the process of classifying buildings in the city in a way that the residential areas are to be given power in the after hours of work, so 5 p.m. and on. And while offices and industrial regions of town are given power during the working hours so that things are managed properly. So with this output, there are so many questions that have arisen, and some of them are related to, okay, so we have this built environment with all its intricacies and complexities. How is it affecting the actual energy use? So because there are these building typologies, there are building built in before the war, some are built during the war, and some are built without any forceful regulation. So these buildings are not really efficient in terms of when it comes to energy. So they are probably using a lot of power to stay warm in the winter and stay cool in the summer. So we are in the process of, we wanted to classify these buildings typologies and link it to the heat islands in the city, link it also to the anthropogenic effects, that is the human effect, traffic, human motion in the city. So all these questions have snowballed out of this small application that we have, and this question had needed some answer to be some question to be answered. So we started reaching out to people with different expertise. We teamed up with Professor Isam La'is, Aram Yeltsan from architecture, and Shahab from mechanical engineering, Najat Saliba from mechanical engineering, and Muna Fawaz from urban planning here at AUB, along with Jocelyn Jalal, Maher Aboud, and Wahb Farah from USG, and our group at CNLS, Dr. Khalid Faoud, the director, myself, and a PhD student in collaboration with the CESBIR group in France. And so things are snowballing to try to actually address these issues that are becoming pressing when it comes to managing resources in the city and smartly sort of conveying these findings to the policymakers. So, but at the same time, we're faced with a lot of infrastructure hurdles, such as the computational power we have is very limited, and we're talking about questions of high computation complexity. Maybe I should stop here. But the findings of this research have gone, as I said, 3 ways. So we have this research problem that is growing with different aspects and branching off, using machine learning, fluid mechanics tools to predict all these aspects that we have and these parameters that we need in our model. We have produced this educational platform, which is the website, where we explain things to the public, how things are affecting the energy use at the local level, and how solar energy can be optimized given the built environment. So I guess with this, I'm going to conclude and leave the floor for the next speaker. Thank
you. Last talk, and I think we are on time. The last talk is about the potential in the ASREN domain. This talk will be given by Renee Hackers. I hope I pronounce your name right.
That's fine. You will find out. You will find out in a moment. Session 5. Come on. Yeah. We are close. Good morning, everybody. So, my name is Rainer Heppers. I'm coming from Bonn-Wannsee University of Applied Sciences, and I'm not a typical ASREN representative, although I try to do my best to talk about research potential in the ASREN domain. So my talk is outlined as follows. I would like to start with a historic review and motivate my messages I would like to pass over today. And I will then discuss the status quo of digital services in the ASREN domain to draw some sample research questions. And it looks like that the intermediate conclusions will be the final conclusions, because in general I'm coming from the free and open source software initiative, and that would be my main message and topic for today. But it looks like that I have to concentrate on the warm-up. But on the right, you see an image of a short-arm human centrifuge. And that's a device that's a German aerospace center where we spin people. And today I would like to spin you around as well, but on an abstract level, to open your mind and to expand your knowledge and perspective. And this should reflect that I understand myself not as Bill Gates, so I'm not Bill Gates, I'm Rainer Happers, and I'm not providing proprietary software, I'm for free and open software. So where's Walid? So did I do my best? Okay, yes, thank you. So let's start with the historic review, but I do not want to scare away, so the historic review will be limited to 24 hours. So for those of us who witnessed yesterday the first day, so we have seen some nice talk. And I would like to start with His Excellency Dr. Talal Abu Ghazali. So he talked about digital literacy, language literacy, and cultural literacy. And in a moment you will see that as a typical researcher, so if you listen to that, then you start thinking about it and have to try to think about what does that mean. And moreover, we heard the title of the keynote of Dr. Stephanie Trill-Barnes from the European Commission. So she is reflecting on the era of information explosion. What does that mean, information explosion? And from my perspective, this is really dramatic. And then we heard about statements from Yusuf Asfour from AUB. So develop new services quickly, and enable collaborations. And I know he's in the audience. What does he mean? And maybe today, I would like to discuss what are the options, what kind of services he had in mind. And we heard as well, and unfortunately I forgot the author, somebody talked about we have to see the development from service providers to service brokers. And then there was a keynote again from Steve Cotter from Giant, broadcasted from the Netherlands. And where is Salem? Oh, Salem is in the audience as well. That was almost a killer of my talk, because his talk was on opportunities and challenges of ASREN. And although you might think of that I have picked my topic of my talk by myself, no. In this case it was given by Salem, so I was trapped, and when I listened to this talk, it was almost a disaster for me, because he was talking exactly about the things I was thinking to talk about today. So that means everything was taken, and I rephrased my talk last night, and you will see the outcomes in a moment. But I would like to repeat a number of issues he addressed. He addressed the motivation and the introduction and the background, globalization, increasing competition. And this is also relevant for higher education institution and research institution. And we as a researcher are not as good as business people. That's a very true finding in providing digital services. And there must be a change in the ASREN business model. And we need to approach more the end users. And I'm very thankful to this colleague from the Netherlands, and would like to come to an intermediate conclusion of the historic review. There's something in the air. So there must be changes, and there are development processes underway in the research and education community. And that's a typical German thing. So we have this crazy gender issue, so we have to always call females and males, and therefore I adapted that to communities, because I believe that we have to really distinguish. So the community, the research and education community in Germany is different as the community in Lebanon and in Jordan and in France and in Netherlands. And we have to take account that there are differences. Okay, what are the consequences out of this? So let's do the talk analysis. Yeah? And this is exactly what a researcher is doing, can ask crazy questions. But here's a huge list. Yeah? So what are the consequences of all those statements? Yeah? So what kind of changes and development processes do we see in the future? Yeah? And who are the end users, the service users? Yeah? And what kind of IT and digital services are we talking about? Is this exactly the same? Yeah? In every community, in every society? Yeah? And who are the target groups? Are the target groups homogeneous, or so how do they look like, and what are their needs? Yeah? And what are the prerequisites? And I know that most of the people in the audience are having a technical background. They are the ASREN VIPs and the stakeholders from this perspective. But I think we all agree we are facing challenges, but we're also facing opportunities, like my colleague was stating yesterday. Yeah? And yes, that's the question for my particular domain: what role does open source software will play in this context? Yeah? And I hope that we do have at least some few policymakers with us, or at least take that with you home and address that as soon as you need those people. So we have to involve people to move forward. So, and this brings me now to the core of my talk. Yeah? So we are facing now mobile communication everywhere, every time, by everybody. So I do not even have to ask the question, who has a smartphone, a mobile device? Everybody has it. Yeah? So, and what are the consequences of that? But there is one question I would like to raise and ask the audience. Who is using Edero? Oh, quite a number. Yeah? But this is a great service. Yeah? But this service is restricted to the research and education community. And we have to ask the question, why? Yeah? So this is so great. Yeah? So I travel from Germany, I travel the world, yeah? And I do not have to hassle with a wireless LAN. It's getting connected by itself. Yeah? So why can't we roll out this to the global society? Yeah? And I'm not saying this has to happen right now. Yeah? So there's a transition process. Yeah? So why not thinking stepwise and saying all alumni of the university will keep their accounts, and then they can still connect with Edero. And you know it from your communities. Well, if the father has one account, then the entire family has an account. Yeah? So then we can spread it out. Yeah? So relatives and other people. Yeah? So that means, yeah, so there are great services already available for the research and education community. Yeah? But how can we spread it out? And my message is so to reflect our duties as scientists and as researchers. Yeah? So our duty, and this is what the president is telling me almost every second day, your duty, Rainer, is to serve the community. And so far, I was thinking of, okay, my job is to educate the people and to pass over knowledge. But it's even more than that. Yeah? So we have seen that in the past as well, and this brings me back to the historic review. So the universities and the research institutions had to be, in the past, the seeds of bigger things of the society change. So talking about gender, talking about other things, and I have put on my slide public transportation. Yeah, so which is another good example how things can change. So some European cities have already started to give public transportation for free. And all of a sudden, everybody is using it. And all of a sudden, the services are increased. And all of a sudden, pollution is going down. Yeah? So, why not transport that to the digital society? Yeah? And I'm not saying that we have to provide the services for free. Yeah? So I can think of business models, yeah? Stepwise. Yeah? And but before I come to that, I would like to step back a bit. Yeah? So from my background, I'm the chair of the Institute of Visual Computing, and yes, there is unbelievable lots of app development and game development in the air, and that's really boosting the things and it's producing tons of data. And yes, but today I'm talking about more. Yeah? I'm talking about services for the communities, for the general communities. And my message is, get out of your ivory tower as a researcher, as a technician, yeah? And think about what can you offer for whom outside of the academic world. Yeah? And that's the story. Develop IT services for the entire society. But for that, we need to know which communities we can serve and support. And I totally understand we cannot do everything at once, so we have to do a stepwise thing. And we have to think about which services. So, and as I mentioned before, I'm not arguing that we have to provide that for free. Maybe as public transportation in Hasselt, in Belgium, so the core in the inner part of the city is for free, and if you go far, then you have to pay something. So the business people are smart to come up with business model and payment model to make you addicted to it. So, and this brings me to the slide of the sample research question, and this is a loop. I go back to the slide you have seen before of the talk analysis. And if you are saying, oh, Rainer, are you crazy? You can't ask this question to a scientist. Yes, I have to ask those questions, and we have to find answers. And although I know that most of you are tech people, so what are the consequences? The consequences, we have to team up with people from social sciences. We have to team up with people from business and economy. And that means we have to identify the most important and requested community services. And maybe as a computer scientist, as an engineer, well, I'm not the right person to find out. And how to focus on which sub-community problems, and how to roll out community services. This is not the domain we are good at. So that means these are not really technical questions we are used to answer and work on. But there is a candy for the technicians. There's a part as a technician we can work on. So there are still open questions. We heard that in the keynote in the morning, very early. So on security, on net neutrality, and on, from my perspective, on data science in general, on compression. So as an image processing guy, still the data representation is not resolved, and other things. And yes, the good news is there are still technical questions left we can work on. But you see, my heart for today is on the first part. So we have to address this non-technical questions as well. As this brings me to the conclusions, and the conclusions are twofold, as mentioned before. There's a social component, open up the IT digital services at your higher educational institution and research institutions to the non-academic world, and expand and extend your outreach, and maybe stepwise. And yes, there's a scientific component, research on data sciences, and in combination of social sciences, data engineering, security, and all the other facts. And the remaining question, or not the remaining questions, the remaining message is you all are invited to contribute. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks for all the speakers. I know that it's not easy really to squeeze your talk in real time. So thanks a lot again. So we break. Yes, we have now a break for 15 minutes also.
يدرس من الشبكات الجامعة الأمريكية.